All right, here we go. All right, welcome to the new JFK show, number 246. We had a little technical meltdown last week, so we're going to redo this week's show. We've got Dr. Ralph Cinque, Dr. Jim Fetzer, and myself, and Ruby is an innocent man. So I'm going to let Ralph go ahead and take it from here.
Thank you very much, Gary. It's a pleasure to be here. All right, Jim, let's see the first slide, if you would.
Yes, indeed, Ralph.
Okay. All right, we're beginning here with a picture that I refer to as the penguins. And I call them that because it reminds me so much of watching Morgan Freeman in March of the Penguins, that documentary about the elephant penguins or the emperor penguins, in Antarctica. And that in the winter, the males, in order to survive the blasts of Antarctic cold, huddled together very closely. And it sort of looks like that in a way, and it's what it reminded me of. Now, what these guys are, of course, are the Dallas Police Department detectives, and they are supposedly pouncing upon the garage shooter of Oswald, who historically has been said to be Jack Ruby. But it's not true. He was actually an FBI agent whose name was James Bookout. And what they're really doing here is not struggling with him. What they're really doing is just trying to cover him up, keep him away from the cameras so that he won't be recognized as someone other than Jack Ruby. And then they're going to do something that no police department has ever done before or since to this day. They are going to move a violent offender somewhere without first putting him in restraints, putting him into handcuffs. You know, my father was a policeman for 45 years, first in New York City, then in Los Angeles. And he talked about the work. And he would say that the first thing you do when you have someone who is violent, or even potentially violent, is you get that person in handcuffs. You get him down on the ground. You get him face down, you twist his arms around his back, and you apply those cuffs. And you do that before you do anything else. But in this case, they actually waltzed him into another room, and then they claimed there they put on the cuffs. In fact, they made it sound like as soon as they got through the door, that 3 detectives at the same time had the thought to take out their cuffs and put them on him. Why didn't any of them have it when they were in the garage here?
Yeah, it looked like a rugby scrub. And also, Ralph, can you comment on the appearance of a black bag or black sack that gets put over Bookout's head?
Well, we can't see in this picture. Now, listen, obviously I couldn't bring everything, but you see this man who is in the center. We know who he was. His name was McManus. And he was a detective. I think it was either Tim or Tom. And we have a picture of him in the Beers photo. And he was actually a tall but skinny man. He didn't have a big, wide girth like that. He, the man on the left, who is Blackie Harrison, he was a big dude. He was huge. And you notice that he looked small compared to the guy in the middle. Well, this is a photographic trick. They actually just enlarged him in order to basically cover up more of the man behind, which is Ruby. I wish I had brought the other picture, but this man in the middle wasn't nearly as big as Blackie Harrison. Whereas in this case, he makes Blackie Harrison look pretty small. So this is a ridiculous picture. And here's another proof. Look at the small size of his head. They didn't bother enlarging that. They left that the way it was. He would have to be like a monkey.
Here, the small size of the head.
On top of this massive body.
You make a nice point, Ralph.
It's a ridiculous thing. Listen, human anatomy has been studied, for centuries. I mean, going back to Michelangelo and whatnot, the proportions. And there is an exact proportion between the head, the size of the head and the size of the body that is pretty consistent, going across the board. And this would break the record for having the tiniest head on top of the largest body. So it really is a joke. It's like a cartoon. And they did it just to hide the fact that the man behind him was not Jack Ruby. Okay, hit the next one, Jim. All right, now I brought this along. I don't expect you to read it. It's a page from the book.
Oh, I can read it, Ralph.
Oh, you can. All right, well, we don't need to take the time to read it. It'd be better if I just explain it. But basically, what it talks about is the fact that Jack Ruby, what they're saying here is that upon his arrest, that Jack Ruby was talking trash about, Oswald. Somebody had to do it. Well, I intended to shoot him 3 times.
Ralph, have me go ahead and read it, and then you comment on it. We got the time.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, 11:23 a.m. Up on the 5th floor of the jail, detectives Archer, McMillan, and Clardy pushed Ruby.
Excuse me a second. Those 3 are the very ones who all whipped out their handcuffs as soon as they got through the door. And I said McManus before, but I meant McMillan. Okay.
Okay, good. Okay, good.
Head. He's the big guy with the tiny head.
Push Ruby up against the wall and tell him to spread eagle. With help from the jail officer, they frisk him, tossing the items they find into Ruby's hat, including a sizable roll of money. They remove the handcuffs and have Ruby stripped down to his shorts, searching his clothes completely for weapons. In his underwear, Ruby no longer seems all that threatening.
Let me interrupt a second, Jim.
Of course.
That was the primary reason I included this.
Yeah.
Stripped him to his underwear.
Yes.
And if you read further in this book, and if you read further in the books that was written by Gertz, who was Ruby's lawyer, they kept him in his underwear for a long time, talking to him, interviewing in his underwear. Now, why would they need to do that?
I know, Ralph. You got a brilliant idea here. I love it.
Now, the reason is because they needed to deliver his clothes. And it's very possible that McMillan is the one who delivered them. Because let me tell you, it doesn't get to it quite on this page, but what's going to happen in this narrative is that they're talking to Ruby, and then a Secret Service agent named Forrest Sorrells shows up, and McMillan explains to him, listen, I have a prior appointment. I have to go. I can't stay. You're going to have to take over this questioning. And Sorrells says, fine. And McMillan leaves. And McMillan went down to the garage where they were shooting the photos and whatnot. But anyway, you can see him in the Beers photo. So McMillan, this all happened before the garage spectacle. McMillan leaves, delivers the clothes to book out, and then McMillan was there in the garage for the spectacle, which was televised, and he was part of the whole ruse. But the bit about the stripping him to his underwear was to get his clothes, to give them to book out. All right, keep reading, Jim.
And it may be then one of the reasons for picking book out was he was approximately the same size as...
Right. I mean, he was the closest they had to someone to cast for Ruby. Right.
Ralph, you're doing such a great job with this. Jack, I think you killed him, Archer says, recalling the look on Oswald's face as he lay on the jail office floor. Somebody had to do it, Ruby says. You all couldn't. That's got to be made up, Ralph.
Absolutely and positive. Now, you got to realize that there was a report from a TV anchor person that Ruby was muttering incoherently after his arrest.
Yeah.
He was not even rational. And we have...
He may well have been drugged.
Yes, very well. And we have a picture of him in which you can see that his pupils are dilated, which is the effect of many drugs. And in all the footage that we have of him in the hall, he never said a word. So all of this trash talking,
this is a fabrication. It's a
fabrication.
It's a fantasy.
It's
Did you think
writing.
you could kill the man with one shot? Someone says. Well, I intended to shoot him 3 times, Ruby replies. I didn't think that I could be stopped before I got off 3 shots. But that's all just made up. It's just
totally, completely made up.
It sounds like a made-for-TV movie.
And a bad one at that.
How'd you get into the basement? Detective Bernard Clardy asked. Rio Pierce drove out in the car, Ruby says, referring to the Main Street ramp, and the officer stepped out from the ramp momentarily to talk to Pierce or said something to him, and I came in behind him, right on down the ramp. When I got approximately halfway down the ramp, I heard somebody holler, "Hey, you," but I don't know whether he was hollering at me or not. So I just ducked my head and kept coming. It was one chance in a million. If I had planned this, I couldn't have had my timing any better.
Oh, boy.
So when you make up a fantasy, you might as well make it 1 in a million.
Yeah, let's go for it.
We absolutely know now that there were two separate events. Apparently, Detective or Lieutenant Rio Pierce drove out twice. He drove out once about 45 minutes to an hour before he did the second time, and that was the time that Ruby was there. Now, Roy Vaughn, who was, you might say, the second stooge to this whole thing, he wasn't even there yet. If you really study the record of it, they had him in a dispatch room drinking coffee and just talking to other officers. They were keeping him occupied there, waiting until they were done getting everything straightened out with Ruby and getting him squared away. Now, we know that there were two separate events because both Vaughn and Ruby described what happened. And they gave different descriptions. They told different stories. Ruby said he was approaching from Hardin Street, which I believe was west. And he said that as he approached the ramp, that the officer on foot, whom he did not recognize, was standing on the passenger side of the car, and he was looking in and talking to Officer Pierce, and he had his back to Ruby. That's what Ruby said. Those are his exact words, that the officer had his back to me. But when Vaughn gave his description of when Pierce pulled out, he said he moved to the east side. He had to get out of the way because the car was coming out, but he didn't move to Ruby's side, which was the Hardin Street side. He moved to the Pearl Street side, which was east. So he was on the driver's side of Pierce's car, and so he would have talked to him from the driver's side. So it was the opposite situation. The officer who was there when Ruby was there went to the passenger side, and then Vaughn, when it was his turn, he went to the driver's side. But the other thing that proves that what I'm saying is true is that Ruby knew Vaughn. One time, Vaughn had pulled Ruby over because of a traffic violation. And when he recognized him as a friend of the department, because Ruby, contributed money when someone died and things like that.
Free drinks.
He gave free drinks, probably gave free lap dances at the club. And Vaughn decided...
And other benefits.
Yeah.
Vaughn decided to excuse it. He just basically forgave the violation. And Ruby, he adored these Dallas police detectives and policemen, and he never would have forgotten that. So he would have remembered Vaughn to his dying day. If so, he knew Vaughn, and if he had seen Vaughn, he would have recognized him. So they must have had a different officer there at the time that they got Ruby, and then after they got Ruby, settled up there on the 5th floor in his underwear, that's when they brought Vaughn down and said, "Hey, Vaughn, you guard the ramp." And actually at 11:15, when Pierce pulled out, nothing happened. Nobody got past Vaughn. And Vaughn, to his dying day, I mean, literally to his dying day, his daughter said on his dying day, he said, "Ruby did not get past me." And he was no slouch, that guy Vaughn.
Right.
He went on to become the chief of police of the Midlothian, Texas Police Department. Right. And then after that, he became a judge. He became a municipal judge. He was no slouch.
So Ralph, the drugging, don't you think that they drugged him when he was in his underwear at that point?
Well, I don't know. I know he was drugged before that, because if you read his own narrative, he said, and keep in mind, this narrative was edited. It wasn't, we can't be sure every word of it is right. But what it says in the narrative is that he took twice his usual dose of amphetamines that morning. There's no explanation why. And then he said, and I also took 5 or 6 other pills. Well, who would just say that? I mean, if you were going to take 5 or 6 other pills, you would say why, you would say what. There was nothing there. He may have said something, but they just edited it out. So I don't know who put him up to it. My suspicion is that his roommate, George Senator, was no good. I think Senator may have been involved.
I think that's right, Ralph.
Into him. Okay, let's go to the next page, Jim. All right, so this is the famous Beers photo. And what I have demonstrated here is what I believe to be visual proof that James Bookout is wearing Jack Ruby's clothes. First of all, we look at the length of the suit of the shooter. And at first glance, you can see that it's longer than a suit. To me, it reminds me of a top coat. You know, I can just imagine, you know, Fred Astaire. Yeah,
a short top coat, yes.
It's a little bit, it's just too long. And you can simply compare it to the length of the suit that Jim Lavelle is wearing. I looked this up on a clothier's website, but it said that the length of a nice suit should go down right about to the middle of the crotch. That's what it says. Well, this is, you know, down his thigh. This is much longer than his crotch. His crotch is at least a few inches higher than that.
Yes.
So it's too long, but look how tight it is around the shoulders and his arm, where you can see that he's stretching it. It looks very, very tight across the top of the back. And that's because this guy Bookout was a hefty guy. He was a real burly guy. Yeah. He was short-necked and just real thick and stocky through the top of his body. So that jacket is actually too small for him on top, but it's too long for him on the bottom. And that's because it's Jack Ruby's.
It's wonderful, wonderful, Ralph. I just love this.
Hit the next one. Hit the next one, Jim. All right, now this is the famous collage that brought about such a ridiculous inclusion in the paperwork for this crime. What we're seeing here on the left is Jack Ruby, and there's no doubt, I cropped it, of course, but there's no question that that was Jack Ruby. And as you can see, he's wearing black socks. There's some distortion there because I enlarged it so much that, you know, it damages it. And he's wearing these shoes that have a high top, almost like a basketball shoe. Now, the guy on the right is wearing a dressier shoe. It looks, you know, like something that would really buff up and shine nicely. And it's a low-riding shoe. I mean, that top of that shoe is down around the middle of the ankle bone. It's not high at all. And the most ostensible thing is the fact that he's wearing a light-colored sock. Now, we don't know what color the sock was. It's a gray, black and white photo. It looks gray to us, but it may have been tan. It may have been, gold. I mean, I don't know. It could be any light color, but on the grayscale, you can see that it's very, very light compared to the black color of Ruby's shoe.
They just didn't think about the socks, Rolf.
They didn't
think about the socks. And, you know, when you're pulling a farce like this, it's very hard to think of everything. I mean, and I know because I made a movie and you're dressing people, and it's very easy to overlook things, and they overlook this. So in order to solve it, they came up with the idea that, well, we're going to claim that we changed Ruby's socks, that he was wearing these socks, and that we gave him these black socks to wear to go with this cabana outfit. Now, I don't have it here to show you, but this is a white outfit that they gave him that to me looks like something that a Cuban waiter would wear. It looks very kind of Caribbean to me, to my eyes. It's all jet white. It has large collars. Yeah, to me it looks like, you know, somebody would wear to a Cuban disco or something. And it's very strange at all that they gave him anything to wear, because this was a city jail. You understand that people moved in and out of this jail usually in less than 24 hours. You see, the way it worked was you got arrested by the police. The Constitution, as part of your habeas corpus rights, says you have the right to a speedy trial in the sense that you should get to appear before a judge very, very quickly, just in case this police officer was up to no good, that he had a vendetta against you or something. You get to talk to somebody who presumably is going to be objective. Now, each state actually sets what the time limit is that you have to see a judge. And I'm pretty sure that in Texas, it's 24 hours. If it's not 24, it's 48. It's definitely not more than 48, but it may be just 24. Now, in Ruby's case, he was arraigned on the same day. The crime was committed at 11:20 in the morning, and by the middle of the afternoon, he was already being arraigned. That's how quickly they did that. And then after the arraignment, the judge decides either to dismiss the charges, or to release you on your own recognizance, or to release you on bail, or to not release you at all, which has happened. In other words, they call that to remand you, where you can't get out even if you post $10 billion. You got to go to the county jail. But the point is that no matter which of those options resulted, you're leaving the city jail. You're leaving the city jail within 24 hours. So why would they give you a costume? Why would they give you a uniform? They didn't give one to Oswald. And I actually took the liberty of calling the Dallas Police Department, talking to the jailer, who happened to be a female. And I'm going to admit she was a little irritated with the call. But I wanted to know, do you give clothes to your defendants who come there? And she said, no, we don't. They're not here that long. They stay in their own clothes. And I said, was it that way back, say, in the 1960s? And she said, I'm sure it was. So, I had that from her directly. And regardless, it's from a purely practical matter, it had to be that way. So it was
minus their shoes. Minus their shoes.
Okay, now, but here's the funny part, okay? When they saw this, it dawned on them that the socks were different, and they had better account for that. And so they ended up writing into his property invoice one set underwear. Now, what is a set of underwear? What does it consist of? Is it underpants, undershirt, and socks, or is it just 2 out of 3? I mean, why would you even describe it that way? Why wouldn't you list what each item is? That's the first thing. But the second is, why would you take the guy's underwear? Why would it be necessary for him to be wearing regulation underwear? And what would you do with the underwear? According to the invoice, they put it in a bin, a storage bin. Well, the only bin that soiled underwear needs to go into is a hamper. Am I right?
A laundry bin.
Right. I mean,
right.
Who wants to handle some guy sweaty underwear? They claim that they put it in a bin. And they listed, and for the different items that he had, they listed all these bins. And every bin had a letter and a number. So it was like, I think the bin for these underwear was G9.
It must have been a nasty room.
The bin for his watch and his wallet was something like N11. So I'm thinking to myself, what, do they have a room here with all these bins that it covers every letter of the alphabet and numbers up going up to who knows where they're putting all this soiled underwear there and leaving it for days on end? And then what, returning it to the guy? It's just ridiculous. It was totally made up. But the funniest part is that it never even occurred to them that these are different shoes. You've got the high top versus the low top, and then you've got the sole. And I don't know how well the audience can see it, but that's almost like a sports sole, like a very corrugated sole. It's waffled on the bottom.
Yeah.
The other one looks like a dance shoe. It looks like it's so slick that you.
It looks like my dad's shoe.
You
if he's
could
going
dance
out.
on a dance floor and
You want me to go back to show that he was wearing the shoe at the.
No, let's keep going. But
Okay.
the point is that if we look at this, we can definitely see that these are different shoes. They never accounted for that. And if they had accounted for it, what they would have had to do, which they didn't do, is put on the invoice one pair of shoes, meaning that they took the shoes from him and therefore they're holding his shoes. They didn't do that, which means they didn't take his shoes. They didn't claim to take his shoes, which means that this makes no sense at all, that since they didn't take his shoes, that he would be in different shoes in this.
But they got his underwear.
So this is a smoking gun, if there ever was one, that this was a different man wearing different socks, different shoes. He was not Jack.
I just love your attention to detail, Ralph.
Okay. Let's hit the next one, Jim. All right, well, this is the photo at large, and I thought that you should see it. I'll tell you why. Because they took the usual mug shots of him, which is just, you know, the bust shot where you're seeing the face and the upper body, the close-up. And for some reason, they decided that they also wanted to have a full-length picture of him.
They've even got his trousers pulled up, Ralph.
He has his trousers pulled up. That, I don't know if that was by accident or on purpose. But here's what I want you to realize. They needed something to mark this as a mugshot. So they put that placard on the ground, and I think it has the date.
Oh, yeah.
It has his number on it, and they put that on the ground.
We're talking about right here, of course.
If they had had a stand or
hold up the trowel. Yeah.
If they had had a stand or a table, say that was as high, you know, maybe halfway up to the light fixture, they might have put that placard on the table and then not worried about including his shoes, and they would have avoided this whole gaffe.
It just looks so silly, Ralph.
Right, but because they didn't have anything to put it on and they wanted that to be in the picture, that's why they included his feet. They probably didn't really want his feet, but they just had to include it because they had no place to put that placard, and it really foiled.
You're really showing how silly and ad hoc and made up the whole thing was.
And really just plain stupid. Okay, go on to the next one, please.
And just as a side note, just how filthy the place and run down. If you look at the picture before,
yeah,
the whole place is, you know,
it looks pretty good.
Nasty, run down, broken down.
Absolutely.
Just.
All right, well, this is the close-up then again of just the shoes. Oh, yeah, and it's showing you the placard. That's part of his number, his prison number on the placard. But again, they really blew it with this. Okay, go to the next, Jim. All right, now this picture here I brought, again, I consider it a point of humor. But this is supposedly when they were taking Ruby through the jail office to take him upstairs to the 5th floor for the first time after bringing him in. Now, if you remember the description that they gave, and I've read it at length from several narratives, and keep in mind that the various detectives, they were all interviewed by the Warren Commission, and they all said the same thing, that they got through the door, they pushed him against the wall, and apparently they all took out their cuffs, but I forget whose cuffs that actually went on. I think it was McMillan's cuffs that actually went on Ruby, and they put the cuffs on him, and then they took him upstairs, and this is supposed to be them doing that. But there's two ridiculous things about this image. The first is that they never claimed to remove his coat until they got upstairs. They never said that they took his coat off him before they handcuffed him. They said they immediately put him in handcuffs. Well, if they put him in handcuffs, then they couldn't take his jacket off, because if your hands are cuffed, you can't take your arms out of the sleeves of the jacket. So until they removed the handcuffs, he couldn't have been out of the jacket. So in other words, this photo can't possibly be real, because he was still in his jacket at this point. He didn't come out of his jacket until they got upstairs. So that makes this picture ridiculous. But the second thing that is ridiculous is that they're implying here that the scuffle in the garage was so rough, it was so violent, that apparently all the buttons got ripped off on Ruby's shirt.
Right.
And as a result, it's completely unbuttoned, even though his tie is still on. That's sort of the story here of this picture. But that isn't true for two reasons. One, he was wearing his jacket during the scuffle. It was buttoned, and the jacket would have protected the shirt from getting this much, you know, rough treatment. So that's the first thing. But the second thing is that later on, when they're taking him around on the police in the police station, we see Ruby, and he's wearing his shirt, the same shirt, his own shirt, meaning not the Cabana shirt, but his own shirt, and he's got it buttoned. and it looks fine. So apparently the buttons are still there. And if the buttons were still there, why would it be unbuttoned here unless they deliberately unbuttoned it? So,
I love it, Ralph. I love it.
okay. And then the third thing that I would point out is this, is that in the photos of him in the police department that were taking, starting at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, going up to 5 or 6, his hair looks coiffed. It looks combed. It looks greased. It looks wet. It just looks like it's perfectly combed and groomed. And all of this, I call this the Ted Kaczynski look. He looks like the Unabomber here. And how did he go from this to this perfectly GQ'd hair that he has later on? Did they actually bring a hairdresser up there? And in his state of mind, let me ask you, somebody who's now under arrest for murdering somebody, how worried are they about their hair, and how much attention are they going to give to combing their hair? So that's another incongruity and inconsistency between the pictures.
Well, I bet you that hairline is totally different than book.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. They have been doctoring his hair since day one. And this one is different actually from every other one that I've seen. His hair wasn't that long. It certainly wasn't that thick. He did not have that much coverage. And it's all just a big lie. Okay, go to the next, Jim. All right, here's an example of it. So this is him on the 3rd floor. The time was 3 o'clock. They were taking him here for his first interview with Fritz. And you can see that his hair now is combed. It's slicked back. It's sort of flat on his head. It looks, groomed as can be. Again, it's more hair than he had. Those real long strands that they're showing did not exist. But obviously, it's extremely different. And notice that the shirt is buttoned. The only button that's unbuttoned is the top button. And that's normally the way you wear, unless you're wearing a tie, that's how you wear your shirt. Nobody buttons the top button unless they're wearing a tie. And so obviously the buttons were there, which means there's no excuse for the shirt having been unbuttoned.
In the prior image.
In the prior image. So
CNN photograph.
Just Madison Avenue propaganda from beginning to end. They were just playing it, fast and slick, bamboozling the public and everyone else. Okay, go to the next, please. All right, I included this picture because it's getting close to showing the true condition of Ruby's hair. Even here, the strands, which look like they're about 6 inches long or much longer,
yeah,
had. But at least you can see that there really is an extreme baldness and extreme thinness of the hair. It's nowhere near as thick as we see in all his other photos. So even this one was doctored a little. He had even less hair than this. But this one shows you just how sparse his hair really was. Okay, go to the next one. Oh, here's another one that, again, just a huge, huge bald spot. They probably, did a little bit on top to try to make it look like he had some more there than he did. But he really was practically bald. I mean, I'm afraid to say it, but that's what the truth is.
Yeah.
They had to do this because when you look at the garage shooter in the Jackson photo, he looks like he's got a rug back there. Nobody who was totally bald on top would wear it, or even they wouldn't have such thick hair even at the bottom. So they did this just to try to conform to what we see in the Jackson photo. But this is another example of a relatively truthful showing of his hair. Okay, go on, Jim. Okay, now these are 2 more shots supposedly of Jack Ruby. It is most certainly not Jack Ruby. These are from the NBC footage. What we're seeing on the left is this guy there. And as you can see, there's a black disc right over his eye. Now, why is it there? It's because they put it there. And
yes,
without that there, it would be so obvious that he wasn't Jack Ruby that they had to cover it up. Now, I think, this is my opinion, I think that when they put it there, that they were thinking of implying that he was wearing sunglasses. That's what I think they had in mind.
yes.
But then somebody must have pointed out to them
No
Now,
rim.
Ruby did not have sunglasses on him. He had reading glasses on him, and the glasses that we see in the Jackson photo are clear-lensed reading glasses. So when that, became realized, they changed the story and just said that this is shadow. Well, whoever said that was an ignoramus who could not pass a freshman physics class, because the way shadow works is that you have an object, and the object is located between a source of light and the area that is going to have the shadow. And basically, the shadow is created by the shape of the object that is casting the shadow. And there is no object
To cast that shadow.
that has that shape that could have that effect around his eyes. So there is no chance that it was a shadow, and there is no chance that it was sunglasses. That is just something that they put over there to try to turn this guy, whoever he was, into Jack Ruby. Okay, go on, Jim. All right. This is an outline that we have.
I take it this is the real Jack on the right. Oh, no, it's just a close-up of both of them, huh?
Yeah, this is a close-up, of the very same one. But another thing that strikes me in this case is, you see that very pronounced vertical wrinkle going down that guy's face? It's right below the eye there, right?
Yeah.
That's something. And then he has another crease further to our left, going down from the corner of his nose right through his lip. Another vertical line there. Jack Ruby did not have those lines in his face. I call this the catcher's mitt look. It's a very distinct way of developing wrinkles in your face, but Jack Ruby didn't have it. It's another example of why this guy could not possibly have been Jack Ruby. Okay. Oh, and another issue, though, is he was way too tall. Okay, here we are. Yeah, you can't quite see it here, but standing in front of him is Blackie Harrison. And Blackie was a very tall guy. He had to be like 6'2" if he was an inch. And this guy looks like he is within 2 inches of that. So this guy was a good 6 foot tall. And Jack Ruby was 5'9". Okay, go to the next one, please. All right, so this is the famous Beers photo. And there's a couple things I want you to notice about this. On the far right, holding this little cigar, and Jim, can you point to that? In his left hand, there's the little thing sticking out above his thumb. No, that guy. This guy, lower.
I'm trying to figure out who you mean, Ralph.
Go left. Go left.
This guy, left. No, go left. Left. I'm sorry, Jim. I've been saying left. I meant right. He's on our right. Yeah, this guy.
Right there.
Go to
Right
his
there.
left hand. Go to his left hand. His hand. Yeah, right there. Okay. That little thing that is sticking up.
This is supposed to be a cigar or cigarette?
Little cigar. And he did have one. That is the little cigar of Blackie Harrison. This is supposed to be about half a second before the Jackson photo. And in the Jackson photo, what we see of him is that he has brought the cigar to his mouth, so he's puffing on it. And he has extended his right arm, supposedly reaching for the gun. So here he is trying to break up a shooting, but he's such a smoking addict that he has to take a puff of his
How
cigar
ridiculous. And
at the
notice,
same
of course,
time. So
the shooter is wearing the light socks.
yeah, he's wearing the light-colored socks, absolutely.
And
also-
the shoes that are sort of high top.
Next to him is a very interesting character named Ike Pappas. He was a freelance
This
journalist.
guy,
Yeah, he worked for CBS quite a bit.
he's got a microphone, I take it.
He's got a microphone, but listen to this. He asks, keep in mind, Oswald's being let out supposedly to walk 30 feet to a car without stopping to get in and be driven away. And Mike Pappas asks him, do you have anything to say in your defense? Now, how could a man answer that in 2 seconds as he's being walked by? I mean, if you were going to ask anybody a question in this situation, knowing what it is, you would ask him a yes or no question. You know, did you do it or something? To ask him to expound, what do you have to say on in your defense when he's walking at a rapid pace past you, is a ridiculous question to ask. And in any case,
Right.
I want you to take a good look at him, because we don't see him in the Jackson photo. I'm going to show you in a minute. I think I brought it.
But
now,
also how tall Blackie is. Look how tall he is next to Booker.
Oh, yeah, Blackie, yeah. Oh, yeah, look how tall he is. Look how tall he is. He's a big, tall guy. This guy's very short. This is Tom Pettit, the NBC reporter. And you see this skinny guy here? Jim, point to the guy between the two hats. There's a white hat and a black hat. And the guy in between them. No, the guy, you have a white,
not Lee, of
not
course.
that guy. The other white hat. The other white hat. And the very, between him and that, so him, that's right. Keep it right there. That guy right there, that skinny guy right there, he plays the behemoth. He's supposed to be the behemoth in the penguin picture that we started with at the beginning of the show.
So he's the one that stretched out to make.
Yeah, he's the guy that they altered his aspect ratio. They forgot about his head. And you notice that in this photo, his head looks rightly proportioned to his body.
He looks like String Bean. You remember the country
artist? Yeah, he
artist?
looks like String Bean, but at least he's got a normal head. The other guy, do you remember the Popeye cartoon that there was a character named Bluto?
Sure.
Yeah.
Pluto, a bad guy.
He was big with a small head.
Yeah, he was a big, enormous guy with his tiny head. And that's how that other guy looked. And it's just because they're idiots. They figured, well, we don't need the head, so we'll just leave the head the same size.
Well, we're too stupid to notice.
We need a big butt.
No, Ralph, until we were.
Okay. All right, go to the next photo, please. Oh, wow, that's the last one we brought. All right, go back to it a second then. How much time do we have,
We got about 15 minutes.
All right. If I quickly send you a photo, can we do it?
Sure, of course.
Okay.
I mean, you can do it from your laptop, Ralph. We just share.
Hold on a second. How do
Yeah, go ahead and hit pause there, Dr. Fetzer.
There you go, Ralph.
Okay.
We're back on.
Now, this is the Jackson.
Now, use your microphone.
All right, this is the Jackson photo that was reportedly taken 0.6 seconds after the Beers photo, which is, basically a half a second later.
So there you go. You got the cigar up there. He's smoking now.
I want you to think about how fast half a second passes, and just the mere impossibility that somebody could do two things, getting his cigar to his mouth and then reaching in.
And ask him what he has to say in his defense.
Well, that guy, I'm going to talk about him in a minute, but I'm talking about the detective here on the far right. He's reaching now, supposedly for the gun. Supposedly he knows there's trouble, and he's reaching with his right arm, his right hand, to get the gun. He's obviously a long way from it, unless he had.
Well, he smokes his cigar.
And but he won't. You would think that at a moment like that, he would quickly just
drop it. Get it out of the way.
The cigar and just concentrate on what he has to do. But no, he's going to keep smoking. But here's some things that I really want you to pause upon. First of all, I want you to notice that Officer McMillan, remember the skinny guy?
Yeah.
He's not here. He's not here. He's missing.
That's not him there, right?
Now, and here's the reason why. The Beers photo was taken during the spectacle, and McMillan was there for that. But this photo, the Jackson photo, was taken while McMillan was up on the 5th floor, settling Oswald in and getting him, in his underwear and getting his clothes and all that. So while he was doing that, they were taking this picture down here in the garage, and that's why McMillan wasn't there for it. That explains why McMillan was in the Beers photo. But here we have a photo taken just a half a second later, and he's not in it. Now, there's more. Apparently, Ike Pappas, that reporter who asked Oswald if he had anything to say in his defense, a ridiculous question, he apparently wasn't there for this pre-pose. This was like, press, just a staged photo. He wasn't there for that either. And the reason why I have to speculate, is it possible that he just wasn't trustworthy enough that they could include him in something like this and, be confident that he's going to go the rest of his life without divulging it? Maybe he wasn't in the inner circle enough that they could count on him to do it. But for whatever reason, he wasn't there. But here's what I think. I think that in case somebody were to notice it, and I don't know that anyone besides me before now has noticed that he's not there, but I think that just as a insurance policy, if you will look in the armpit of Blackie Harrison, you can see his arm reaching. Just look in his armpit. That beneath his armpit, you can.
Here, Ralph.
Where?
I'm moving the cursor.
No, but he's got the screen share now.
Yeah,
I can't see it, Jim, because I'm looking at my own image here.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, you probably have it right. Okay. I believe that they put in that configuration, which is showing actually a darker jacket than Pappas was.
Yeah, Ralph, use your mouse to point it out.
Oh, attaboy. Okay. So this is what
that's just where I was, yeah.
All right, so this configuration right here.
Microphone, Ralph.
This configuration right here, which is darker than the coat that Pappas was wearing, but I believe that if anybody challenged it, they were going to say that, oh, this is Pappas. But it's absolutely impossible, because Pappas was much closer to Oswald than that. He was close enough that he could ask him a question, and he had his microphone there, and this is actually too far away. So they just put this in there because it was better than nothing, and they felt that they could get away with this, that it would represent something as a representation of Ike Pappas in the Jackson photo, so that it would be consistent with the Beers photo. And that really is all that it is, okay? All right, now please go to the next photo now. We've only got about 10 minutes.
Well, you gotta undo it.
Oh, okay.
Jim, I'm on the air, I'll call you. You gotta just, stop the screen share. Ralph,
Okay.
you just want, there you go.
Okay.
There you go.
All right, okay, go to the final one now.
Now we're good.
No, that was,
I know if you wanted to talk about.
well, this is the Beers photo again, and it shows you how close Pappas was to the shooter and to Graves, and it really proves that he wasn't standing behind Blackie Harrison, and that tells you that it wasn't true. All right, go to the final image of my, okay, I'm going to spend the last 10 minutes now. I thank Jim and Gary for letting me just talk a little bit about this film.
Keep your mic up, Ralph.
It's a different subject, but let me point out to you that in a way I think it is at least indirectly related to the JFK assassination, because if we think of the reasons why they murdered JFK, that one of the biggest, and maybe the very biggest, was that JFK wanted peace and they wanted war. They wanted war, of course, in Vietnam. They wanted the escalation of that war. They actually wanted war with Cuba. I sincerely believe, I don't know if you and I have ever discussed it, Jim, but I sincerely believe that originally they were going to kill Kennedy, blame it on Castro, and use it as a pretense, as an excuse to invade Cuba. Now, in the end, they dropped that idea. They decided, killing Kennedy's enough. We're not going to try to attack Cuba. But originally, I think that was the idea, that they were going to kill Kennedy.
I'll tell you why that's highly likely, because Larry has exposed, based on the newly released documents, that they had a very elaborate charade to claim that Oswald had gone to the Cuban embassy to get that visa. And,
right, exactly.
And all fabricated, Ralph, and it was so elaborate. They had so many participants. It was a very big deal. It was a major piece of the puzzle. So I think you're spot on.
Right. Oh, well,
and one of the problems is that the Mexican people actually were in favor of Cuba, and not the United States. So it just didn't work, you know?
Well, anyway, what I want to read, what I want your listeners to know is that this movie of mine, My Stretch of Texas Ground, it is primarily an anti-war movie. What it does is it highlights the war crimes and atrocities of the U.S. government in its so-called war on terror, which was really a war of terror. Now, the three of us here today, we are all proud to be 9/11 truthers. We know very well that the official story of 9/11 was a lie. We know that airplane crashes and fires did not fell those towers, that they were imploded. And yet, that false story of 9/11, that Osama bin Laden did it, was the entire basis for invading Afghanistan 18 years ago, a war in which hundreds of thousands of people have died, including 2,500 Americans, and which is still raging today. I mean, people are dying in Afghanistan.
I know, it's absurd.
It's an
This is
absolutely
the longest
absurd
war
that
in
here we are,
U.S.
we've
history.
been fighting there over 4 times longer than we fought World War II.
Yep.
The entire thing was based on a lie. But
That's
listen
right.
to this, it's even worse than that. When they bombed a wedding party in Afghanistan, killing the bride, plus other women, and many children, they apologized, the U.S. military. But then they did it 7 more times. They have bombed a total of 8 weddings in Afghanistan trying to kill.
Well, I think it's because they're using AI, see, and it's a group phenomenon. They think they're picking up on terrorist training operations, and they don't have human beings who are paying enough attention to what's actually going on to call the shots right.
But even if it was, say, true that some of the insurgents were at that wedding, when did it become right to just help yourself to kill?
Oh no, it's grotesquely immoral.
It is grossly immoral. And then
100%
listen to this.
correct.
And we point this out in the movie that in Iraq, when they were trying to kill Saddam Hussein, and Jim, we should do a show on him sometime.
You mean Osama bin Laden?
They say about him isn't true either. But
they were in Iraq, yeah, trying to kill Saddam.
But he was actually eating in a restaurant.
Yes.
It was a cheap restaurant. It was a kind of restaurant where you could buy a chicken dinner for $1. That's how working class it was by Iraqi standards.
Ralph, I broke that story that it happened on 7 April. I had the mother of the pilot on my show. I broke that story.
They dropped a bomb that left a crater that was about 100 feet.
Well, it was actually 4 500-pound JDAM bombs, 4 of them.
And they wiped out a whole neighborhood.
Well, they wiped out 50 or 60 members of his guard and his 2 sons as well.
And the irony was they didn't even get Hassan. They didn't even kill him.
No, they did kill him. They did kill him.
In that attack?
Yeah.
All right. But anyway,
they put a double into the spider hole. That was
I see.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I knew that guy was a double. That's why I tell you, we got to do a show about. I'd love to show the.
Saddam had excellent teeth and an overbite, whereas the double had bad teeth and an underbite.
Tremendous dental differences. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. But anyway, we talk about these things in the movie, and it is being trashed. In fact, we were going to do this show last week. And I didn't have this to say last week, but today somebody wrote a 1-star review to this movie on Amazon that Amazon published, in which they admitted that they didn't even watch it. That just based on the posters,
it's just disgraceful,
and the trailers, Amazon let them write a 1-star review.
And Amazon is completely corrupt, Ralph. You know they've now banned 6 of my books.
Nobody has to review a trailer because everyone can watch the trailer for free. It's not as though you have to tell somebody what's in the trailer because I
thought you had to watch the movie to be able to comment on it.
That's what I thought, but today they
let them publish trash reviews on books they've never read.
He said, I'm not going to waste my money on this because I've already seen the trailer and I know it's a piece of so-and-so. So, and Now, I have filed a complaint with Amazon. I don't know if it's going to do any good.
Oh, it's
I
not going to
definitely
do any
don't
good,
know.
Ralph. No.
But they are just allowing these 1-star reviews to come in,
Yeah.
and the most extreme things that you can imagine. That this is the worst movie that has ever been made in the history of film.
Nah.
I could
And
give
they've not even watched it.
stars.
I'm going there right after the show.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that. But listen, just to prove that that can't possibly be true. I mean, you guys both know that I was gone for several days. I went to Buffalo, New York, to attend the Cinema Fest Film Festival.
Pull it away from your mouth just a hair.
Cinema Fest Film Festival, and I'm very proud to say that this film won the award for Best Feature Film.
Oh, terrific, Ralph. Congratulations.
And listen to this.
Congratulations.
There was a guy in the audience who is a real-life deputy sheriff in Aberdeen, South Dakota. And he came up to me afterwards and said, Ralph, I love the portrayal that Jeff Weber, our star, gave for Sheriff Joe Hallidan. He was the real McCoy, the real thing. He made us all proud. And he really, really liked it.
Ralph, congratulations. That's wonderful.
Thank you. It really just touched
You have done so many terrific things, Ralph, and it's because of your distinctive background and your tenacity and your perseverance and your perceptivity. Congratulations.
I work like a demon. When I make up my mind to do something, I do it. So anyway, I just want to go out by saying that this film is under attack the same way that Jim is under attack for his truthing, regarding Sandy Hook, and it's just a vicious conspiracy, and it's the same way here where they are targeting this film to try to destroy it. So I'm asking every truther out there who supports me, who supports Jim, who supports the things we're doing, to watch this film on Amazon and give it a very high rating to help me counter these very, very disinfo ratings that are coming to the film. And I thank you both for having me on.
Oh, Ralph, it's been a great pleasure. Absolutely sensational. I love it.
Okay.
No doubt. Yeah, I'm going to be calling on all truthers at 153 News to go to Amazon and give this thing a 5-star rating, whether you saw it or not.
Please, do watch it. Do watch it.
I can attest for Ralph Cinque. He is 100% truther, and he's one of the few that we know. We don't have many friends. And,
thank you, guys. Love you guys.
Ralph,
okay.
it was wonderful. Wonderful. Wonderful.
Good man.
All right, JFK 246. We'll see you next week.